Okay, so I hope my screen is visible. And before starting the letter, this is a small thing which I wanted to share with you, the chains and the rounds. So as you all know, every planet is septenary. That means there are 7 globes, which together, they are all one planet itself. And these globes, they can be on different planes, on the physical plane as well as on the inner or the subtle planes. So what you are seeing on the slide currently, this is the Earth chain. All the 7 globes together, they form one chain or that planetary chain. So the septenary Earth chain is shown in this figure with the fourth globe, that is the globe D. It is our Earth which is present on the physical plane. And the other 6 planes, they are on the inner or the subtler planes. Now, this is what Madame Blavatsky had mentioned in the Secret Doctrine, that only one globe of the Earth chain is on the physical plane. Though in the later studies, we find that Annie Besant and C.W. Leadbeater, they had a different view. So it is left to each one of us when we study what we make of it. But from the Mahatma letters and the Secret Doctrine, I gather that there is only one physical globe of the Earth on the physical plane. So we begin with the globe A, B, C, D. This forms the descending arc. And from D back to globe E, F, and G, it forms the ascending arc. And as you see, there are 2 globes on the Buddhic plane, then 2 globes on the mental plane, and 2 globes C and F on the astral plane. The upper 3 planes, they are the formless planes. So this is what we should keep in mind when we are studying this letter. And the similar diagram has been shown in Secret Doctrine, which you are now seeing on the slide. So in this slide, basically HPB was trying to compare the Eastern Gupta Vidya with the Kabbalah. So you can refer to the globes which are given on the left side of the figure. In these globes, you can see the Earth globe D, that is on the physical plane. C and E, they are on the astral plane. The globe B and F are on the Mansic plane, and the globe A and G are on the Buddhic plane. So this is what she writes in the Secret Doctrine, and this is what we will follow when we are studying this letter. The higher 3 planes, they are the planes of the septenary cosmos, which are divine, and they are the world of the formless spirit. Now, further, as I said, each globe is a septenary. So that is the planetary chain, forming the planetary chain. And 7 such chains, they make one scheme. So here example of a scheme is given. You can see the first chain, which has its globe on the highest plane, the spiritual plane, and then descending to the intuitional, mental, and the emotional plane. Once the life wave has completed 7 rounds around one chain, then the life wave moves on to the second chain. The second chain has been shown as beginning from a slightly lower plane. Again, it has 7 globes which are on different planes. When the life wave passes around all of these globes 7 times, that is 1 round. And after 7 rounds are complete, then the life wave will pass on to the third chain. After similarly 7 rounds of the third chain, the life wave will pass on to the fourth chain. So our Earth chain is the 4th chain in the scheme. And we are in the 4th chain where we have the globe D, that is the physical Earth on the physical plane. Now this has been very beautifully depicted by a theosophist, James S. Perkins. He wrote a book called Visual Meditations on the Universe. And in this, he was a painter also. And he has painted this. And I have taken the liberty to show you those paintings from Theosophy Wiki. So this is how he has painted the 7 chains of Earth scheme. You can see in the figure, the circular yellow part, that is the entire solar system. And there are 7 schemes, there are 7 planetary chains in our scheme. These are the planetary chains, beginning from the first one, then the second, the third, and the fourth. So currently we are in this fourth chain. How he has shown each of these chains is, the first chain, he says, it develops here the mineral archetype. The mental mineral archetype is evolved, and he has shown it beginning from the highest plane, that is the Atmic plane. But there is no need to confuse ourselves by going into which plane the chain is starting. We have no conception of the previous chains. In the theosophic literature, it has been given only about our present chain, that is the fourth chain, and that too about the earth. So from the chain 1, after 7 rounds are complete, all the life principles are transferred to the second chain. So this you can see is the second chain in this picture. When 7 rounds around the second chain are complete, then the life wave moves to the third chain. And after 7 rounds in the third chain, then it comes on to the fourth chain. So this is our current chain. And we are in the fourth round of this chain. 3 rounds around the chain have been completed. We are in the fourth round and we are on the fourth globe. So the fourth globe is the physical globe on our earth. So I think this aptly explains the vocabulary and the terms with which we are familiar. Now, based on this, we will start the study of this letter. So we go back to the beginning. This is our chronological letter number 66, and it was written by Mahatma K.H. to Alan Hume in the July of 1882. As I said, it is in question answer format. So during that period, in around the first half of 1882, Hume had been writing these articles which were called Fragments of Occult Truth. And later he lost interest in that. And then Sinnett took over that endeavor to write those fragments of occult truth. But it is not that he was not keen to acquire this esoteric knowledge. He was very keen to know the occult philosophy, he as well as Sinnett, both. So they used to pose questions to the Mahatmas, and then Mahatmaji would reply through his letters. So this is one of those letters. We come to the first question that has been asked. Hume asks that we understand that the man-bearing cycle of necessity of our solar system consists of 13 objective globes, of which ours is the lowest, 6 above it in the ascending and 6 in the descending cycle, with a 14th world lower still than ours. Is this correct? So this was his question regarding Earth and its globe, to which Mahatma K.H. has replied, the number is not quite correct. There are 7 objective and 7 subjective globes. I have been just permitted for the first time to give you the right figure, the worlds of causes and worlds of effect. Now see, very clearly Mahatmaji is telling there are 7 objective and 7 subjective globes. Objective means factual reality. It is a fact which is the same for everyone. For example, everybody sees that the sun is rising. So rising of the sun is an objective reality for all. And subjective means it is based on or something that is influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions. So for example, the sunrise to one person, it may mean a new start, a fresh new day, an inspiration. But for some other person, it might mean that the rest period is over, the sleep is over, and now he has to again begin a day of hard work. So different people can have a different feeling or a different thought about the same objective reality. So this is how you must try to understand what is subjective globe and what is objective globe. So the objective globes, they are the world of causes. Here the causes are created and the effects, they come into picture in the subjective worlds. The causes are created by our own thoughts, words, and deeds, whatever we do. They are the ones that create the causes. And then the effects, when they occur, that is our subjective world. And they are accruing the results of these causes. So these worlds of causes are separated by the world of effects. And Mahatma Ji says that there are 7 objective and 7 subjective. So total 14. And this is for the first time that this figure has been given to us. Okay. Now see, there are many ways of classification. Here you can see what Mahatma Ji has mentioned. World of causes and worlds of effects, right? Same 14 worlds, many of you might be knowing, they have been described in our Hindu scriptures also, which talks about the 14 loks, the 7 lok and the 7 tal. They are based on the states of consciousness. Okay, in which state of consciousness you are on that particular plane. So now let's see here. Further, Mahatma Ji has mentioned that the former have our earth occupying the lower turning point where spirit matter equilibrates. The former meaning the objective globes. So in the objective globes, our earth, it occupies the lowest point, that is the turning point where spirit matter equilibrates. It is a state in which the opposing forces or influences, they are balanced. So here material attraction is balanced by the spiritual force. So this is the lowest point of evolution. Now here once again I have shown these globes which we have already seen, this figure. How these globes are present on the different planes. In the descending arc A to D, spirit is involuting into matter. And then this is our lowest globe, the earth, where spirit matter is equilibrating. That means the spirits are in balance. The forces are in balance, spiritual and material. And then in the ascending arc, D, E, F, G, spirit is dominating and matter again resolves into spirit. So that is why earth is called the lowest point where they are in equilibrium. Now, an important thing which we must keep in mind when we study this, that these are not separate globes in space. They are all interpenetrating. That means they are present at the same location, if you please. They are present together. All the matter is interpenetrating because we know that all the planes also, they interpenetrate. So next, Mahatma Ji mentions, but do not trouble yourself to go into calculation, even on this correct basis, for it will only puzzle you. He mentioned there are 14 worlds, but he says that even though I have given you the correct figure, don't go into calculation, since the infinite ramification of the number 7, which is one of our greatest mysteries. So we know about the septenary law. Some information has been given. Everything in the universe is septenary. The chains, the rounds, races, principles in the macrocosm and microcosm, all are septenary. So this is the greatest mystery, being so closely allied and interdependent with the 7 principles of nature and man. That is the 7 principles of microcosm and macrocosm. This figure is the only one I am permitted so far to give you. What I can reveal, I do so in a letter I am just finishing. Now we know these 7 principles of microcosm or man, that is Atma, Buddhi, Manas, Kam, Pran, Linga Sharir and Sthul Sharir. And they correspond to the 7 principles of macrocosm. And these principles in macrocosm, they have been given as the Supreme Spirit, which we call Paramatma. Then the universal spiritual soul, that is the 6th principle, universal 6th principle, which is Mahabuddhi. Then 5th is the universal mind, which is called Mahat. Then we have the 4th principle, which corresponds to the principle in man also, that is Kam, the principle of cosmic Kam. And then the 3rd principle, which is corresponding to Pran, that is the cosmic vital energy. The 2nd principle, which corresponds to the Linga Sharir. So at the cosmic level, it is the astral light. the second principle. And the first principle, which is our physical body, that corresponds to the sthul sharir of the manifested universe. So that is the first principle of the macrocosm. Now, in our case, macrocosm for us, it indicates solar system, and microcosm, it indicates the individual human being. So this is the sevenfold nature, which is reflected in man, just as it is in the universe. So that's what Mahatma Ji said, that these 7 principles are there in nature and man, but please don't trouble yourself to go into any calculations. There are infinite ramifications of this septenary law. The next question that Hume asked, we understand that below man, you reckon not 3 kingdoms as we do, mineral, vegetable, and animal, but 7. Please enumerate and explain these. So this also, I'm sure most of us have studied in the Theosophic literature, that total there are 10 kingdoms evolving on the planet Earth, and 7 of them have been explained. Mahatma Ji mentions that below man, there are 3 on the objective and 3 in the subjective region, with man a septenary. Now see, again the term objective and subjective is coming in. So remember, objective is always the factual truth, which is fact for everybody. Everyone can perceive it. And subjective is based on personal emotion and thought. Okay. And so there are 3 objective and 3 subjective plus man. So these are the 7 kingdoms. The 3 objective kingdoms below man, so they are objective. Everybody can see them. They are same for all. They are the mineral, plant, and animal. And the 3 subjective kingdoms below man, we know they are the elemental kingdoms. Elemental 1, 2, and 3. Basically, what are these elemental kingdoms? The elemental, it pertains to the elements, the cosmic elements. We call it the Mahabhut, Pancha Mahabhut. Okay, so they are the elementals of fire, water, and earth. These are the 3 subjective kingdoms. Then Mahatma Ji is mentioning that 2 of the 3 former, that means the elemental 1 and elemental 2, none but an initiate could conceive of. The third is the inner kingdom below the crust of earth, which we could name but would feel embarrassed to describe. That is elemental 3. That would be the elemental of the earth. Now, as per science, see what Mahatma Ji is saying, that the third kingdom is below the crust of the earth. And as per contemporary science, the crust of the earth is around 5 kilometers thick under the ocean bed. So if somebody were to reach the ocean bed, under that ocean bed, 5 kilometer thick earth crust is there. And if we are at the surface of the earth, on the continents, under the continents, the crust of the earth is about 30 kilometers thick. And Mahatma Ji is mentioning that the third inner kingdom is below the earth's crust. So these 7 kingdoms are preceded by other and numerous septenary stages and combinations. These 7 kingdoms which we have seen, 3 elemental plus mineral, plant, animal, and man. But even before all these kingdoms, life has evolved through innumerable septenary combinations. And those kingdoms would presumably have been on even more higher or subtler planes during the descending arc or involution. Now, in this question, Hume asks, we understand that the monad, starting in the highest world of the descending series, appears there in a mineral encasement, and there goes through a series of 7 encasements representing the 7 classes into which the mineral kingdom is divided. And that this done, it passes to the next planet. And likewise, I purposely say nothing of the worlds of results, where it takes on the development of the result of what it has gone through in the last world and the necessary preparation for the next, and so on right through the 13 spheres, making altogether 91 mineral existences. Is this correct? So Hume has a lot of questions about how is the monad evolving through the mineral kingdom. Now, what Mahatma Ji is saying, yes, in our string of world, it starts at globe A. It meaning the monad. This is, sorry, the next slide. This is the reply to Mahatma Ji's to Hume's question, in which Mahatma Ji mentions that yes, in our string of world, it starts at globe A. It meaning the monad. Globe A of the descending series and passing through all the preliminary evolutions and combinations of the first three kingdoms, it finds itself encased in its first mineral form. That means the monad has passed through the first three elemental kingdoms, and then the monad enters the mineral kingdom. On all the globes, all 7 kingdoms, they evolve together. This we must keep in mind. They may be at different stages in their evolution, but all kingdoms, they evolve together. Then he says, in what I call race, when speaking of man, and what we may call class in general, of class 1. So take analogy from human kingdom. Just as human kingdom evolves through 7 root races, every other kingdom also evolves through 7 groups or classes. In case of mineral, we cannot call root races. So therefore, we call it as 7 groups or 7 classes. Only it passes through 7 instead of through 13 spheres, even omitting the intermediate world of results. Why does in the mineral kingdom the world of results is omitted? Because minerals are not subject to cause and effect. They are not going to create cause and they are not going to have any effects. So the monad through the mineral, it passes only through the objective spheres. It does not have to go through the subjective worlds. Then having passed through its 7 great classes of inmetallation. A good word this. Mahatma Ji finds this a very good term. As I said, the vocabulary was still evolving. So inmetallation means the monad has taken the upadhi of the mineral. That is inmetallation. And it passes through 7 great classes of that mineral kingdom, which is corresponding to 7 root races. Then the monad gives birth to the vegetable kingdom and moves on to the next planet B. And then in his answer A is, as you see now, except as to the numbers. So Hume had asked whether the numbers are correct. He said 13 globes and some 91 lives. So Mahatma Ji says that numbers are not correct, but the rest of it is correct. Okay. Now further, the next question, he asked, if so, what are the classes we are to reckon in the mineral kingdom? I request all of you to please mute your mic. So Hume is still talking about the mineral kingdom, and there are 7 classes of mineral. He wants to know about that. Mahatma Ji says that the geologists, they divide, I believe, stones into 3 great groups of sandstone, granite, and chalk, or the sedimentary, organic, and igneous, following their physical characteristics, just as the psychologists and spiritualists divide man into trinity of body, soul, and spirit. Our method is totally different. So what science is doing generally, it is dividing things, classifying things based on the physical characteristics. So same thing they have done in the mineral kingdom. There are the igneous rocks. Igneous rocks, they have a crystalline structure and they are formed due to solidification of molten magma. For example, you know granite, you know basalt. These rocks are igneous rocks formed due to solidification of magma. The next are the sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks have a layered structure. They are formed due to deposition of layer upon layers of eroded rocks, soil, and other material. So this is the second type of rock, having a second physical characteristics, that they are layered. Then third type of rocks, they are organic rocks. Organic rocks are formed due to accumulation and lithification of organic debris. Organic debris is like leaves and roots and other dead plants and animals. And this gives rise to formation of coal. There are many types of coal. So it hardens, it becomes like a rock. Okay, and they are organic rocks. So you can see all this is classified based on how these rocks got created, based on their physical characteristics. But in the great wisdom tradition, in the tradition of the Mahatmas, things are classified based upon their principle, which are septenary. They are not classified based upon the physical characteristic. So Mahatmaji says, we divide minerals and also the other kingdoms according to their occult properties. That is, according to the relative proportion of the 7 universal principles which they contain. I'm sorry to refuse you, but I cannot. I'm not permitted to answer your question. Okay, so what was his question? That what are the 7 classes of mineral kingdom? Mahatmaji is not permitted to answer that, but he has given a clue that they are classified, or those 7 classes, they are based on the relative proportion of the 7 universal principles which they contain. Now we have seen that the universal principles in the macrocosm, they are reflected in the 7 principles of man. Similarly, they are reflected in the mineral also. And in what proportion they are there in the minerals, based on that, the minerals are classified into 7 classes. So he further says, to facilitate for you a question of simple nomenclature, however, I would advise you to study perfectly the 7 principles in man, and thus to divide the 7 great classes of the minerals accordingly. So this is the exercise left to us. We must study the 7 principles of man, and we must try to intuit, try to understand that how they can correspond or reflect in the mineral kingdom. For instance, the group of the sedimentary would answer to the compound, chemically speaking, body of man, or his first principle. So Mahatmaji is giving us clues that to what these different type of rocks they can correspond to. The organic to the second, some call it the third, that is principle or jeev. This is the principle of pran. You must exercise your own intuition in that. Thus, you might also intuit certain truths even as to their properties. I am more than willing to help you, but things have to be divulged gradually. So he cannot give all that information to you or to Senate at once. Information has to be divulged gradually, and he is clearly exhorting us. It applies even to us that we must not expect everything on a platter to be given to us. We have to read the things, we have to contemplate on it, and we know that there is the universal law of correspondence or law of analogy. So we should apply the same things to the other kingdoms and try to make our intuition work and find out the answers. Now, this table I have taken from the book Key to Theosophy by HPB. So this was the basic book which he wrote, in which he gave the 7 human principles. Just because, see, in the previous slide, Mahatmaji has told us that study perfectly the 7 principles in man, and then divide the 7 great classes of minerals. So this is for your reference, the 7 principles of man as given by HPB in the book Key to Theosophy. The 7 principles are, beginning from the top, the 7th principle, Atma, then Buddhi, Manas, Kam, Linga Sharir, Pran, and Sthul Sharir. So Mahatmaji has mentioned in the letter, sedimentary rocks correspond to the principle of Sthul Sharir, and organic rocks correspond to the principle of Jeev. Jeev means Pran, that is the 2nd principle. By understanding the formation of rocks and by contemplating upon these 7 principles of man, we can intuitively realize the next classification of the mineral, that is the 3rd class of the mineral, so on and so forth. And this we can do by this law of analogy. The universal truths or the universal principles, they manifest in the higher kingdoms. They manifest in the larger cycles. And so also they manifest in the lower kingdoms or the smaller cycles. So to refer to this, you can refer to the book, The Key to Theosophy. We won't go into the details of the human principles. Then the third part of the question Hume has asked, also, how does the monad get out of one encasement into another? He's talking about the mineral kingdom. So how does monad get out of one encasement of the mineral into another? In the case of inherbations and incarnations, the plant and animal dies. But so far as we know, the mineral does not die. So how does the monad in the first round get out of one into another in metallation? Okay, so Hume has used these very interesting terms in metallation for monad, which is evolving through minerals, evolving through plant kingdom. He's calling that inherbation for the herbs, plants and herbs. And for monad evolving through animal or man, he's calling incarnation, because carnal refers to body. Okay. Now, as per our general understanding of life, death, and rebirth cycle, the mineral does not seem to have any stage of death. Okay, so this question is valid. How does the monad in the mineral go from one mineral body into another mineral body? And for this, Mahatmaji answers, simple answer, by occult osmosis. Now, what do you understand by occult osmosis? First of all, let us understand what is osmosis. So in our contemporary science, osmosis is described as a physical process by which a solvent is something in which something else can dissolve. For example, water is a solvent. So it is a physical process by which a solvent, it can pass through a semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable means it allows only some things to pass and it will not allow other things to pass. For example, the cell membrane of the cells in our body, it is semi-permeable. Okay, so osmosis is this process by which a solvent can pass through this semi-permeable membrane from a less concentrated solution into a higher concentration of solution. For example, this is the process by which plants will absorb water from the soil. Water gets into the roots of the plants. Water is present in the soil, but the root is made up of the plant cells. So water from the soil will pass through the cell membrane by this osmosis process into the cells of the plant. Okay. So similarly, in an occult process, the monadic essence will pass from one mineral body into another. So this is what Mahatmaji is saying. And it is occult. It means it is hidden. It is not in our knowledge. And he says, the plant and animal leave these carcasses behind when life is extinct. So does the mineral, only at longer intervals, as its rocky body is more lasting. It dies at the end of every manvantric cycle, or at the close of one round, as you would call it. It is explained in the letter I'm preparing for you. So in the next letter, this thing is explained in more detail. So Mahatmaji is saying that body of the mineral will last for a longer period, and by occult osmosis, the monadic essence will pass from one mineral body into another. And the body of this mineral, it lasts for one complete round. That means across all the 7 globes of the chain. Then the fourth part of the same question, Hume asks, and has every separate molecule of the mineral a monad, or only those groups of molecules where definite structure is observable, such as crystals? This is like asking that in man, does each cell in man have an Atma, or does only the aggregation of all cells, that means our complete physical body, that has an Atma? So this is just a corresponding analogy to let you understand. This is what he's asking, that how is it in the mineral? Does every separate molecule of mineral have a monad, or only the combined, the molecule who form a definite structure, does that have a monad? So Mahatma Ji is telling every molecule is part of the universal life. This one sentence gives you that great statement where it is said that kan kan mein Bhagwan hai. There is God in every particle. So he's saying every molecule is part of the universal life. Man's soul, his fourth and fifth principle. Which are the fourth and fifth principle? That is Kam and Manas. So these fourth and fifth principle is but a compound of the progressed entities of the lower kingdom. This is a very profound statement. Man's soul is but a compound of the progressed entities of the lower kingdom. What can you make out of that? Are there beings in lower kingdom which come together and form the human soul or the principle of calm? So we must go back to understand the kingdoms. Which are the lower kingdoms? We said that the three elemental kingdoms, then mineral, plant, and animal. Now, mineral, plant, and animal, they don't form our fourth and fifth principle, but the elemental kingdoms, they do. So what happens is that these entities, they are the elemental essence of the astral and mental plane. Mahatma Ji calls it entity because every particle is alive. Every particle is part of the universal life. And they are the progressed entities because just like in all other kingdoms, the entities of elemental kingdom will also evolve through 7 classes. 7 root races in human, 7 classes of mineral. So same thing applies in the lower elemental kingdom. They will also have 7 classes. So they are the progressed elementals. And those elemental entities or the essence which has passed through the first 3 classes within the elemental kingdom, because there will be 7 classes in elemental kingdom. So the elemental entities which have passed through the first 3 classes within that kingdom, and they belong to the 4th or the 5th elemental class in that kingdom, they are a suitable vehicle for the 4th and 5th principle of man. For example, if you take the 5th principle, that is Manas. So Manas has the Upadhi made of mental essence, essence of the mental plane. So what is that essence of the mental plane? It is the mental elemental essence. So that is what is meant by these principles are a compound of the progressed entities of lower kingdom. Same holds good for astral also, of which our principle of calm is the aggregate. Then further Mahatma Ji mentions the superabundance or preponderance of one over another compound will often determine the instincts and passions of a man unless these are checked by the soothing and spiritualizing influence of his 6th principle. So so whether a man is driven by passion or whether he works by reason, this is determined by dominance of his 4th or 5th principle. That means whether the principle of calm is dominant or whether the manas principle is dominant. Both of these principles, they come into balance or they come into harmony when the 6th principle, that is the buddhic principle, our spiritual soul, that is able to influence these lower principles. So if the light of buddhi is able to shine upon our lower principles, when we purify them, when we purify our life, bring purity in our mind and purity in our hearts, then the spiritualizing influence of buddhi is felt on the personality. Then we move to question 4. So this question 3, it had 4 parts and I have taken the answer given by Mahatma Ji to each of the 4 parts so that there is no confusion. And then now we move to the 4th question by Hume. Hume asks, please note, we call the grand cycle that the monad has performed in the mineral kingdom a round, which we understand to contain 13 or 7 stations or objective, more or less material worlds. At each of these stations, it performs what we call a world ring, which includes 7 inmetallations, one in each of the 7 classes of that kingdom. Is this accepted for nomenclature and correct? Now, frankly speaking, I find Hume's question itself is very confusing. So I'm not going to dwell on that, but I will go to the reply which Mahatma Ji is giving. His query is basically something about the mineral kingdom. Okay, that how many stations it stops. Now, Mahatma Ji says that I believe it will lead to further confusion. So already that question is very confusing. Around we are agreed to call the passage of a monad from globe A to globe Z or globe G through the encasement in all and each of the 4 kingdoms as a mineral, a vegetable, an animal, and man or Deva kingdom. So this is the standard nomenclature that we are now using. Around is when the life wave or the monad passes from globe A to globe G. That means through all the 7 globes. That is equal to 1 round. So 7 globes make 1 round. Okay. Then he further says that the world ring is correct. World ring means that on one globe, the life has to pass through 7 classes or 7 root races. So that is world ring. World on one globe itself, passing through 7 classes. And Mahatma Ji says that M advised Mr. Sinnett strongly to agree upon a nomenclature before going any further. So you can see the difficulty they would have had to communicate with Hume and Sinnett because of this inadequacy of vocabulary. This world ring is what we now call the globe period. Please keep this in mind. And just like in human kingdom, 7 root races make 1 globe period. So in the mineral kingdom also, monad will evolve through 7 classes of mineral. Please keep this in mind. I think we'll take 1 or 2 slides more and then we can continue in the next session. So the answer continues. Mahatma Ji mentions that the monad performs not only world rings or 7 major inmetallations, inherbations, zoonizations, and incarnations, but an infinitude of subrings or subordinate worlds in all series of events. Mahatma Ji is using the same vocabulary like Hume. This inmetallation pertains to mineral, inherbation is to the plant, zoonizations is for the animals, and incarnation is for the man. So it not only goes through those 7 major classes, okay, but it also goes through the sub races and the branch races. So in human kingdom, we know that there are 7 root races. Each root race has 7 sub races, and each sub race has 7 branch races. And within them also there are many septenary cycles. They correspond to these rise and fall of civilizations, the rise and fall of tribes, then there are migration of tribes. So all those things. And just as in every branch of science, geologists, botanists, and zoologists, they have come up with their divisions and classifications of entities. So also Mahatma Ji has their own, in their tradition, they have their own classification. So he mentions that in the next, we have our arbitrary classifications and our nomenclature. But besides all this being incomprehensible to you, volumes upon volumes out of the books of Qute and others would have to be written. So this occult classification of different kingdoms. See, first of all, Mahatma Ji said that he is not able to give the answer to the 7 classes of minerals. He is not permitted. Only of human kingdom we know. But there is still a classification which is based on the relative proportion of universal principles, the 7 principles in each kingdom. And this occult classification of different kingdoms, that terminology is extremely baffling. It is almost unfathomable for lay people like us. All this information, it is contained in the books of Qt. Some of you who have read deeply secret doctrine, they must have come across this term. The books of Qt, they are very ancient books and they are kept in the ancient Tibetan monasteries. From these books itself, if you know, the stanzas of Dhyan, they have been taken. These books contain the stanzas of Dhyan based on which the secret doctrine was written. And this, whatever knowledge is contained in those books of Qt, it is so vast that to make that knowledge intelligible to us, explanations running into numerous volumes are required. And this is very evident from the size of secret doctrine itself. So Mahatmaji says that their commentaries, the commentaries on the books of Qt, they are worse still. They are filled with the most abstruse mathematical calculations, the key to most of which are in the hands of our highest adepts only, since showing as they do the infinitude of the phenomenal manifestations in the side projections of the one force, they are again secret. So everything evolves from the one element or the one force, but it is septenary. And then each of that is again septenary. And then each of that is again septenary. So this is like an infinitude fractal. People who know this mathematical term, fractals, okay, one evolving from the other. It is something like that. And it can be calculated mathematically, but that is known only to the highest adept. Okay, so basically all this knowledge that is contained in these books of Qt about the elements, the kingdoms and the globes, this is all Tattva Gyan. It is the occult science behind the manifestation of the phenomenal universe. And this is held secret by these adepts. Because given that knowledge to man, it means putting great power in his hand. Therefore, it is held secret. So I think with this, we will stop here. That is on slide number 14. And let us absorb what all we have studied in this letter. And also now I will invite Meenakshi ji to give us the translation of these slides in Hindi.
Namaste. Thank you so much, sister. आज हम लेटर नंबर 66 ले रहे हैं, जो कि मास्टर के एच A.O. ह्यूम को लिखते हैं जुलाई 9, 1882 में। इस पत्र में A.O. ह्यूम के प्रश्न और मास्टर के एच के उत्तर हैं। A.O. ह्यूम प्रश्न करते हैं, हम समझते हैं कि हमारे सौर मंडल के मनुष्य धारण करने वाले साइकिल ऑफ नेसेसिटी में 13 ऑब्जेक्टिव ग्लोब्स हैं, जिनमें से हमारा सबसे निचला है। उसके ऊपर 6 आरोही चक्र में है और 6 अवरोही चक्र में है, और 14वां ग्लोब हमारे ग्लोब से भी निचला है। क्या यह सही है? मास्टर उत्तर देते हैं, यह संख्या पूर्णतया सही नहीं है। 7 ऑब्जेक्टिव और 7 सब्जेक्टिव ग्लोब्स है। मुझे पहली बार आपको सही अंक देने की अनुमति दी गई है, जो कि कारणों और प्रभावों के जगत है, वर्ल्ड्स ऑफ कॉजेस एंड इफेक्ट्स। ऑब्जेक्टिव ग्लोब्स हमारी पृथ्वी ऑब्जेक्टिव ग्लोब हमारी पृथ्वी है, जो निचले मोड में है, जहां स्पिरिट और मैटर समतोल में है, इक्विलिब्रियम में है। यह सही आधार पर होने पर भी आप इसमें हिसाब लगाने के लिए खुद को परेशान न करें। यह आपको केवल उलझाएगा, क्योंकि 7 अंक का अनंत शाखा विस्तार है, जो हमारे सबसे बड़े रहस्यों में से एक है, जो सृष्टि और मनुष्य के 7 तत्वों के साथ इतने संलग्न है और परस्पर अवलंबित है कि अभी तक मुझे आपको केवल यही आंकड़ा देने की अनुमति है जिसे मैं जाहिर कर सकता हूँ। उसे अगले पत्र में करूंगा जो मैं अभी समाप्त कर रहा हूँ। ह्यूम का अगला प्रश्न है, हम समझते हैं कि मनुष्य के नीचे आप 3 वर्गों को नहीं मानते जैसे कि हम मानते हैं, यानी खनिज, वनस्पति, पशु वर्ग को, बल्कि आप 7 वर्गों को यानी किंगडम्स को मानते हैं। कृपया इसका विवरण दे और समझाए। मास्टर उत्तर देते हैं, मनुष्य के नीचे ऑब्जेक्टिव रीजन में 3 किंगडम्स है और सब्जेक्टिव रीजन में 3 है। मनुष्य सप्तक होता है यानी सेप्टेनरी होता है। ऑब्जेक्टिव 3 में से 2 की कल्पना एक सिद्ध पुरुष के अलावा कोई नहीं कर सकता। तीसरा इनर किंगडम है जो पृथ्वी की सतह के धरातल के नीचे है, जिसे हम नाम दे सकते हैं लेकिन उसका वर्णन करने में शर्मिंदगी महसूस करेंगे। इन 7 किंगडम्स के पूर्व अन्य और कई सप्तक चरण है और मिश्रण है, यानी सेप्टेनरी स्टेजेस एंड कॉम्बिनेशंस। अगला क्वेश्चन है, हम समझते हैं कि मोनाड अवरोही श्रृंखला की सर्वोच्च ग्लोब या वर्ल्ड में शुरू होकर वहां एक खनिज आवरण में दिखाई देता है और वहां 7 आवरणों की श्रृंखलाओं के माध्यम से जाता है, जो 7 क्लासेस को दर्शाता है, जिसमें खनिज वर्ग विभाजित है। यह पूरा होने पर वह अगले प्लैनेट पर जाता है और इसी तरह वह करते जाता है और इस तरह 13 ग्लोब्स के माध्यम से कुल मिलाकर 91 खनिज जीवन बनते हैं। इस पर मास्टर कहते हैं, उत्तर देते हैं, हाँ, हमारे स्ट्रिंग ऑफ वर्ल्ड्स में यह मोनाड अवरोही श्रृंखला के ग्लोब ए से शुरू होता है और पहले 3 किंगडम्स के सभी प्रारंभिक विकासों और सम्मिश्रणों से गुजरते हुए यह अपने आप वहां क्लास 1 के पहले खनिज रूप में आवरणित पाता है। मनुष्य के बारे में कहा जाए तो हम रेस कहेंगे और सामान्यतः क्लास कहेंगे। यह 13 स्फीयर्स के बजाय 7 में से गुजरता है, यहाँ तक कि बीच के परिणामों के जगतों को छोड़ता है। 7 उपशाखाओं के साथ अंतर्धातुकरण के साथ धातुकरण के 7 बड़ी क्लासेस से गुजरने पर मोनाड वेजिटेबल किंगडम को जन्म देता है और अगले प्लैनेट बी में चला जाता है। जैसे कि आप देख चुके हैं, संख्याओं को छोड़कर आप सही है। ह्यूम का अगला प्रश्न है, खनिज वर्ग में हमें किन श्रेणियों को यानी क्लासेस की गणना करनी चाहिए? मास्टर उत्तर देते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि आपके भूवैज्ञानिक पत्थरों को सैंडस्टोन, ग्रेनाइट और चौक जैसे 3 बड़े समूहों में विभाजित करते हैं या उनके बाह्य विशेषताओं को देखते हुए उन्हें सेडिमेंटरी, ऑर्गेनिक और इग्नियस में विभाजित करते हैं, जैसे कि मनोवैज्ञानिक और अध्यात्मवादी मनुष्य को बॉडी, सोल और स्पिरिट की त्रयी में विभाजित करते हैं। हमारी प्रणाली बिल्कुल अलग है। हम खनिजों को अन्य वर्गों की तरह उनके अलौकिक गुणों के गुणधर्म के अनुसार विभाजित करते हैं, अर्थात उनमें निहित 7 यूनिवर्सल प्रिंसिपल्स के अनुपात के अनुसार। आपको मना करने के लिए मुझे खेद है, लेकिन मुझे आपके प्रश्न का उत्तर देने की अनुमति नहीं है। नामकरण यानी नोमेनक्लेचर को सुगम करने के लिए मैं आपको मनुष्य के 7 तत्वों का अच्छी तरह से अध्ययन करने की सलाह दूंगा और इस प्रकार खनिजों को तदनुरूप 7 बड़े श्रेणियों में विभाजित करें। उदाहरण के तौर पर सेडिमेंटरी रॉक्स के समूह को रासायनिक रूप से मनुष्य के सम्मिश्रित शरीर के पहले तत्व के अनुरूप देखें। ऑर्गेनिक रॉक्स को मनुष्य के दूसरे तत्व यानी जीव के अनुरूप देखें। कोई इसे तीसरा तत्व भी कहते हैं। इत्यादि। इसमें आप अपने अंतःप्रज्ञा का उपयोग करें। इस प्रकार आप उनके गुणधर्मों के बारे में कुछ सत्य भी जान सकते हैं, ज्ञात कर सकते हैं। मैं आपको मदद करने के लिए तैयार हूँ, लेकिन इन बातों को धीरे धीरे प्रकट करना होगा। ह्यूम का अगला प्रश्न है, इसके अलावा मोनाड एक आवरण में से दूसरे में कैसे जाता है? वनस्पतिकरण और पशुओं के आवागमनों में वनस्पति और प्राणी मर जाते हैं, लेकिन जहां तक हम जानते हैं खनिज मरता नहीं है। तब पहले राउंड में मोनाड एक धातु में से दूसरे में कैसे जाता है? मास्टर आंसर देते हैं, इसका उत्तर देते हैं, जीवन के विलुप्त होने पर ऑकल्ट ऑस्मोसिस द्वारा वनस्पति और प्राणी अपने शवों को छोड़ देते हैं। इस तरह से खनिज लंबे अंतराल के बाद करता है, क्योंकि इसका पथरीला शरीर अधिक समय चलता है। यह हर मनवंतर के चक्र के अंत में या राउंड के अंत में मृत होता है। आपको लिखित मेरे अगले पत्र में इसे समझाया है। अगला क्वेश्चन है, खनिज के प्रत्येक अलग अणु में एक मोनाड होता है या केवल उन अणुओं के समूहों में जहां निश्चित संरचना देखी जा सकती है, जैसे कि स्फटिकों में? इसका उत्तर मास्टर देते हैं, प्रत्येक अणु परमात्मा का अंश है। मनुष्य की जीवात्मा उसका चौथा और पांचवा तत्व, फोर्थ एंड फिफ्थ प्रिंसिपल, यह केवल निचले वर्गों के विकसित एंटिटीज सत्ताओं का सम्मिश्रण है। एक सम्मिश्रण पर दूसरे का प्राचुर्य या प्रधानता अक्सर एक मनुष्य की प्रवृत्ति और लालसा को निर्धारित करेंगी, जब तक कि ये उसके छठे तत्व के शांतिदायक और आध्यात्मिक प्रभाव से नियंत्रित नहीं होते हैं। अगला प्रश्न है, कृपया ध्यान दें, मोनाड ने खनिज वर्ग में बिताए महाचक्र को हम एक राउंड कहते हैं, जिसमें 13 स्टेशंस या करीब करीब दृश्यमान भौतिक जगत सम्मिलित है, ऐसा हम समझते हैं। इनमें से प्रत्येक स्टेशन पर यह एक वर्ल्ड रिंग बिताएगा, जिसमें 7 धातुकरण शामिल है। उस किंगडम की 7 श्रेणियों में से प्रत्येक में एक। क्या यह नामकरण के लिए स्वीकार्य है और सही है? इस पर मास्टर उत्तर देते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि यह और संभ्रम पैदा करेगा। खनिज, वनस्पति, पशु और मनुष्य या देव वर्ग के रूप में 4 किंगडम्स में प्रत्येकी सभी में आवरणित मोनाड के ग्लोब ए से ग्लोब जी तक के मार्गक्रमण को हम एक राउंड कहते हैं। आपकी वर्ल्ड रिंग की बात सही है। इसमें और आगे बढ़ने से पहले नामकरण की जरूरत है, नॉमेनक्लेचर की जरूरत है। इस पर मास्टर एम ने मिस्टर सिनेट से दृढ़तापूर्वक सलाह दी है। मोनाड न केवल वर्ल्ड रिंग्स या 7 प्रमुख धातुकरण, वनस्पतिकरण और अंतर पशुकरण या अवतरणों में से गुजरता है, बल्कि 7 की श्रृंखला में सभी अगणित सब रिंग्स या सब ऑर्डिनेट वर्ल्ड से गुजरते हैं। जिस तरह भूवैज्ञानिक, वनस्पति शास्त्रज्ञ, प्राणी तज्ञ इनके इनके विभाजन नामकरण पद्धति है, वैसे ही हमारे पास हमारी अपनी वर्गीकरण और नामकरण पद्धति है। लेकिन यह सब आपकी समझ के परे होने के कारण क्यूटी और अन्य पुस्तकों के संस्करणों को लिखना होगा। हालांकि उनके ऊपर के भाष्य अनाकलनीय है। वे बड़े ही गहन गुढ़ गणितीय हिसाबों से भरे हुए हैं, जिनमें से अधिकांश की कुंजी केवल हमारे श्रेष्ठतम सिद्ध महात्माओं के पास है, क्योंकि परम शक्ति परमात्मा के अलौकिक अभूतपूर्व अभिव्यक्तियों की अनंतता दर्शाने के वे पार्श्व प्रक्षेपण है, इस कारण वे गोपनीय है। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. A very difficult letter in very simple language you have explained to us. Thank you so much. And now I invite all the participants, if you have anything to discuss or any questions to ask, please feel free to do so. This is one of the most important knowledge that we have gained in Theosophy. The chains, the rounds, the globes, and the root races. So any questions on this? If anybody would like to add something, what they have studied or what they have understood.
Yeah, can I contribute something?
Yes,
About
Jitendra ji, namaste.
Namaste. About the number 91 that appears in the letter.
Yes.
That's made out of the 7 times 6 from the monadic, intelligence of buddhi coming down. The 7 planes by 7. 7 by 7 makes 49, isn't it?
Yes.
Now this last seven is the physical where we are now.
Correct.
Where humanity is. So the other 6, 7 times 6 is 42 on the involution and 42 evolution. 42 plus 42, 84 plus 7, we are now on the earth. So 91, that makes 91. And 13, similarly, 6 involution and 6 evolution, and our physical becomes the 13th. 6 coming down, 6 going up, we at the bottom makes 13. So people can now, meditate on it because what happens, the last 7 where we are, the earth chain, the science does not know about the 2 elements. They know only 5. And our Vedas also have mentioned only 5. But after the 1875, 17th November 1875, when the masters formed this Theosophical Society, is the way that we got the knowledge that there are 2 more elements yet to come. When the pituitary gland and the pineal gland will be activated, then we will know those 2 elements. We know that mineral, water, fire, ether, mineral, water, air, fire, ether are the 5 elements. 2 more elements, we have called them subatomic ether and atomic ether, because the science hasn't given the name because they don't know yet those 2 elements.
Very nice. Thank you, Sampatji. And it is right what you have mentioned about the number of involutions, evolutions. So those of us who want to take up the calculations can do so. And Mahatmaji clearly mentions that it is up to you if you want to do, but there are innumerable ramifications of this number 7. And as you have correctly pointed out, that currently only 5 elements are known to us: Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Prithvi. And in the next 2 races or the next 2 rounds, the higher 2 elements, they will also be cognizable. So that is true. Everything evolves together.
But people like the who are evolved already, they know, like the masters, they know about the 6th element and 7th element. They know about it.
Yes, they do.
That's
so right.
Even those who are more evolved in our, from our population, there are few of them.
True, very true. There are these evolved people. There are
what
also
it does means when the intuitional power is awakened in those people, they are on the 6th element.
right.
And when they become oneness with spirit, they have the 7th element.
Very right. So you already have a great insight into this. You're absolutely right, because there is a mention of the 5th rounders and the 6th rounders, so that we will see in the next part, in the next session, next week,
Yes.
that
Yes.
it means nothing but the same thing, that those principles, they are getting awakened or activated.
Yes. Yes.
True. Any other question or any other point to discuss? Shinde sir, would you like to add something?
Yes. Vibhaji, congratulations. Very nicely
Namaste.
explained.
Namaste.
Actually, I attended both the functions today in Bombay as well as yours. So
Okay.
you explained very nicely. And the discussion is also very good. Jitendra Sampath has asked that one. So through our intuitive faculty, we can cognize, as human brain has got this capacity to cognize. What is the 6th principle? We can cognize, but even brotherhood is also to be cognized. But discovery must be individual one. You can also discover what are those 2 higher elements, and that possibility is also there. So now humanity is cognizing, but not individually discovering. So individual investigation and individual discovery, that is what it is expected from the humanity, intuitive humanity. And that is what we have to try our best. Thank you very much. Very good explanation you gave. I want you to write it down and publish as the book. I am very happy to read that one again.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we'll work on that. In fact, even with Meenakshi ji's Hindi translation, we're trying to put it in a book form, I think. Hindi book. So thank you, sir. And I think I have a question from Sheetal Goleji in the chat. She has mentioned that, does this mean in globe E, we will not have physical body, but astro-mental body? And in globe F, shall we not have astral body? Yes, Sheetalji, I think this is exactly what is the idea, that the human form or the human being is evolving together with the earth. See, earth is also evolving and human being is also evolving. So in the globe E will be present on the next higher or the next subtle plane, which is the astral plane. So the body of man also, it will become more ethereal. So it will not be gross physical, but it will become astral, made of the astral material. And then on the next higher globe, it will be even more ethereal. So see, it is becoming less and less material and more ethereal or spiritual in the ascending arc. So your conclusion is correct. Sheetalji, have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you all very much for participating in today's class, and we will continue this letter in the next session next week. So with this, we come to the close of our session. Let us close this session with our closing prayer. Asato ma satgamaya tamso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Sarvesham Swastirabhavatu Sarvesham Shantirabhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukhabhag Bhave. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all for joining. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Vibhaji, and thank you, Meenakshi. You are really translated very nicely.